Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're going to the New Testament. We just finished our study of the book of Ecclesiastes, and right now we're going to be going to the New Testament, and we're going to engage in the study of 1st and 2nd Peter. 1st and 2nd Peter, I really love. They just are such gifts to us as Christians living in this world under the sun. I mean, it really is a manual of day-to-day living in a sinful world. Solomon in Ecclesiastes kind of shows us how the gears work and how they're not going to work. But Peter in First and Second Peter tells us as Christians, what do we do now that we're living in this sinful world, knowing who we are and where we're headed. First and Second Peter were written during Nero's reign. They were written in the AD 60s, following the burning of Rome. I think that's very clear from the text of First Peter, and shortly after following the burning of Rome. On July 19th, AD 64, fire started in the city of Rome near the Circus Maximus, and it burnt for 6 days before it was brought under control. It would have burned a lot longer had the Roman government not established a very large fire brigade that was already in place, the Vigilists, and also if they had not already put in place a large and efficient system of aqueducts bringing water into the city. If it weren't for the firefighters and the ready supply of water that was available to them, the carnage would have been much, much worse. As it was, of the 14 districts of the city of Rome, 10 were severely damaged, 3 were totally eliminated off the face of the earth. Nothing was left but ash. And countless tens of thousands of people died. Hundreds of thousands were displaced. It was a terrible event. There were several burnings and sackings of Rome, but nothing was as destructive as this event, the burning of Rome. The historians who were close to the event, Tacitus was alive when it happened. He was 8 years old when it happened, and he's the only historian that we have who was alive when it happened who recorded the event. He certainly reflects the feeling of the people of Rome as he was growing up in the city and training to be an historian, who lay the blame for the fire at Nero himself. Nero laid the blame for the fire on Christians. And when we get into the text of 1 Peter, I'll read you some passages from Tacitus. I've read them to you before in this venue, but we'll look at them again. They're really telling. Anyway, he blamed Christians. Throughout the New Testament, particularly in the book of Acts, the Romans represent law and order and due process. And they are always saving Christians. And I know the Romans are the ones who execute Jesus, but scriptures are clear. Pontius Pilate tried his best to release Jesus. He did everything short of defying Caiaphas, which he did not do. That's to his discredit. But he recognized that Jesus was innocent. In the book of Acts, the Romans are always there rescuing Christians from the Jews. The Apostle Paul's life is saved three times by Roman centurions. Twice by Claudius Lysias, and then once by the centurion who is transporting prisoners to Rome. So that's who the Romans are. There's a reason for this. At this period of time, and this is clear from the episode with Gallio in Acts chapter 18, during the early decades and middle decades of the first century, the Romans did not recognize that Christians were separate from Jews. And Judaism is a legalized religion by the Roman Senate in the Roman Empire. Jews have a right to practice their religion wherever they are and are not forced to practice the Roman religion. And Romans who are in the Jewish homeland have to respect the indigenous religion. There is no bust of Caesar in the city of Rome, because that would be a violation of Jewish law. That, because as Caesar was worshipped as a god, that would have been seen as an idol. After the burning of Rome, and shortly before the burning of Rome, the Romans are understanding that Christians are not Jews at all. And if you're practicing an illegal religion in the Roman Empire, that is a capital offense, and Christians are guilty of it. And therefore, they're an easy target for Nero. And after the burning of Rome, Nero, in the city of Rome, rounds up as many Christians as he can find, burns them alive, or feeds them to the wild beasts in the Colosseum. That's documented and described in the historians, particularly Tacitus. And during this persecution, both Paul and Peter were arrested in Rome, and both Paul and Peter were executed in Rome. Paul first, and then Peter, which seems very clear from the text of 1 Peter, which we'll notice when we get to the text. 1 and 2 Peter are written during this time. 1 Peter clearly written from Rome. 2 Peter clearly written about the same time. And 1 and 2 Peter together represent Peter's farewell address to Christians, to Christianity, very much in the way Washington made a farewell address to the nation after he left, as he was leaving office. Very much, after I'm gone, this is what I need you to know. In fact, those are the very words he uses. The time of my departure is clear. The Lord's made this known to me, and therefore, after I'm gone, I want you to remember these things. First, the two books are about the two challenges that are going to face the church and continue to face the church to this day. 1 Peter is about persecution. Hard persecution and soft persecution, but the persecution that comes from the outside in. And how do Christians deal with persecution? 2 Peter is about false teaching and about the threat to the church from the inside out. When people inside the body of Christ start teaching things that are not true and that are contrary to simple gospel teaching, how do we respond and how do we survive? And that's what these two books are about. We're going to be introducing 1 Peter specifically as a letter next time, and then we'll get into the text. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.